I wasn't supposed to stay. Just fix the light and leave, that's what I told myself. But the way she opened the door changed everything. She stood there, half in shadow, half in the honey glow spilling from the hallway behind her. A loose white shirt, sleeves rolled to her elbows, and hair that looked like it had given up trying to stay perfect. She smiled, polite, almost detached, and said, "You're the electrician?" "Something like that," I replied, though I wasn't sure I remembered how to speak for a second. Inside, the air carried the faint scent of jasmine and something warmer, lived in. Her house wasn't messy, just paused. Books open on the counter, a mug half finished, a window cracked as if she couldn't decide whether to let the world in or not. She pointed toward the flickering bulb above her kitchen table. "That one's been threatening to die all week." Her voice was calm, low, the kind that makes you lean in without realizing it. I climbed onto the small stool she offered, my head nearly brushing the ceiling. She stood close, steadying the chair with one hand on its edge, the other loosely holding the cable of the lamp. The distance between us felt like something you could measure in heartbeats, not inches. "Careful," she murmured when the stool wobbled slightly. I caught her eyes then, soft brown, tired around the edges, but alive. Too alive. "Got it," I said, though my fingers trembled slightly as I twisted the bulb. I could feel her watching, not in a way that demanded attention, but in a way that made me want to earn it. When the new light blinked on, it spread across her face, warm, gold, forgiving. She blinked, momentarily surprised, and then laughed. Not loudly, but with the kind of quiet relief that makes you want to hear it again. "There," I said. "Fixed. You make it sound easy." "Wasn't," I admitted, smiling. She tilted her head, studying me. "You look young for someone who knows what he's doing." "Guess I'm still learning." She nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. Then she turned toward the counter, her fingers brushing the edge as she moved, an unconscious grace in every step. I found myself watching her the way light catches on glass, carefully, reverently, like it could break if I stared too long. "Coffee?" she asked, glancing back. "Sure," I said. The kettle hissed. The silence between us stretched, not empty, but heavy with something neither of us wanted to name. I noticed small details. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the faint line at the corner of her mouth when she was thinking. She wasn't trying to be alluring. That was the thing, she just was. When she handed me the mug, our fingers brushed. Barely. Just enough to feel the static that lived in the air since I walked in. Her eyes met mine again, longer this time. The kind of look that says too much without saying anything at all. "You really fixed the light," she said softly, almost to herself. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, there was a knock on the door, sharp, sudden. She froze. The mug trembled slightly in her hand. "Sorry," she whispered, setting it down quickly. "I wasn't expecting anyone." She moved toward the hallway, her silhouette framed in the golden light I'd just repaired, her shadow stretching across the floor like something reaching back for me. I stood there, heart beating too fast, realizing I'd come to fix her light, and somehow, she'd already turned mine on. She came back a few minutes later, saying whoever was at the door had the wrong house. Her voice was even, but her hands were still unsteady when she reached for the mug she'd set down. "Everything all right?" I asked. She nodded, too quickly. "Yes. Just someone from before." Before what, I wanted to ask, but I didn't. The silence between us felt delicate, like something that could snap if pressed too hard. She took a sip of coffee and stared at the newly fixed light as if it held an answer. "It's funny," she said. "You spend years thinking you've moved on, and then a knock like that reminds you that maybe you haven't." There was a softness in her tone, not weakness, but history. The kind of ache that hides beneath practiced calm. "You don't have to explain," I said quietly. "I know," she replied. "But it feels strange having someone in my house again. It's been a long time." I watched her trace a finger along the rim of her cup, slow, absent-minded. I thought of all the nights she might have spent in this quiet house, rooms echoing with the kind of stillness that gets heavier with time. You live alone? She gave a small smile. Most of the time, yes. My son visits sometimes. He's around your age, actually. Something shifted in the air then. Not jealousy, but awareness. A reminder of what we were, or weren't supposed to be. I nodded, trying not to linger on the thought. He's lucky, I said before I could stop myself. She raised an eyebrow. Lucky? To have someone like you looking out for him. She looked away then, but not before I saw a faint color rise to her cheeks. You shouldn't say things like that, she murmured, though her voice lacked conviction. I didn't mean, I know. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's just complicated. Her words hung there, soft but weighted. I wanted to look away, but couldn't. The way she stood, leaning against the counter, light touching the curve of her face, it drew me in. Every breath she took seemed to pull me closer, even when she was trying to keep the distance. When she reached across me to put the mug in the sink, her sleeve brushed against my arm, a whisper of contact, but enough to make my chest tighten. She didn't move immediately. For a heartbeat, her hand rested near mine, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her skin. Then she pulled back, exhaling through her nose. You should probably go before it gets dark, she said softly. Yeah, I whispered. But neither of us moved. She turned slightly, meeting my eyes, and in that single look, everything unsaid seemed to surface. Regret. Curiosity. Want. I took a step toward the door. She didn't stop me. But as I reached for the handle, her voice followed, quiet and trembling just enough to stay in my mind. Next time, she said, maybe the light won't be the only thing that needs fixing. The next time I saw her, it was raining. She'd called about a loose socket, though the way she said it, hesitant, almost apologetic, made me wonder if that was really the reason. When she opened the door, her hair was damp, curling slightly at the ends. She looked softer, like the rain had washed something off her. Sorry, she said, stepping aside. I know it's late. It's fine, I said, shaking the water from my jacket. You said something was sparking? Maybe, she said quietly. Or maybe I just wanted to see if it would light up again. For a moment neither of us moved. The sound of rain filled the space between us, steady, rhythmic, like it was keeping time for everything we weren't saying. I went to the wall socket, crouched down, fiddled with the wires that didn't really need fixing. She stood close, too close, her bare feet silent against the tiles. I could feel her warmth behind me before I heard her breath. Do you ever get tired of fixing things? She asked softly. Sometimes, I said, still pretending to work. But it feels worse to leave them broken. When I turned, she was already looking at me. Her expression was unreadable, half-guarded, half-inviting. You shouldn't keep coming here, she said after a pause. People talk. I don't care what they say. But I do. There was something in her tone, not anger, not dismissal, but fear. The kind that comes from knowing what it costs to be misunderstood. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, jaw tightening. A name flashed on the screen, Evan. Her hand hovered over the phone, then withdrew. My son, she said quickly, almost defensively. He checks on me sometimes. I nodded, pretending not to notice the tremor in her voice. The phone buzzed again. She silenced it. Then she turned back toward me, and something inside her seemed to falter. Do you ever feel like, she began, then stopped. Like you shouldn't want something, but you can't help it? Her voice was barely audible over the rain. I stood up slowly. Every day, I said. We were close enough now that the air between us seemed to hum. Her eyes flicked down to my mouth, just once. My hand moved, not to touch her, just to bridge the small, unbearable space. Don't, she whispered, but she didn't step back. The storm outside cracked, thunder rolling through the silence. For a split second, we both leaned in, caught in something that didn't feel like a choice. Then, suddenly, the front door creaked open. A woman's voice called from the hallway, a neighbor, older, familiar. Helen? Are you all right? Lights were flickering again. She jumped back like a spell had broken. I'm fine, she called out, her voice higher now, rehearsed. Just fixing it again. The neighbor's footsteps faded. Silence returned, but it wasn't the same. Her hand was still trembling when she reached for the switch. You should go, she said, not looking at me. I nodded but didn't move. The rain kept falling, soft and relentless, while the space between us, charged and fragile, refused to dim. Days passed before I saw her again. I told myself it didn't matter, that she had her world, and I had mine. But every time I walked past her street, my steps slowed. Then one evening my phone buzzed. A simple message. Lights out again. When she opened the door, I didn't see the calm, composed version of her I'd met before. She looked undone. Her hair loose, sweater slipping off one shoulder, eyes red-rimmed but clear. Rough day? I asked gently. She gave a short laugh. Rough year. Then she turned away, leaving the door open, invitation or mistake, I couldn't tell. The house was darker than before, only the faint glow of the streetlight cutting through the blinds. I don't think the bulb's the problem this time, she said quietly. It's probably something deeper. I can take a look, I said. My voice came out softer than I intended. She stood beside me while I worked, too close again. Her perfume was faint but real, grounding. My hand brushed the back of hers as I reached for the wire. She didn't pull away. Why do you keep coming back? She whispered. I swallowed. Maybe I like the light here. She exhaled, a shaky sound that wasn't quite a laugh. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because you mean them. Her voice cracked on the last word. That did something to me, the honesty in it, the exhaustion of pretending not to feel. I turned slowly. She was closer now, her face half lit by the flickering lamp. I can't stop thinking about you, I said before I could stop myself. The words hung there, raw, irreversible. Her breath caught. She looked at me as if she wanted to deny it, to scold me, but something in her eyes betrayed her. Longing, fear, maybe both. You're too young to know what that means, she said finally. Then tell me. The silence between us tightened. Then she reached up, almost without realizing it, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. My hand followed, catching hers midway. The contact was small, skin against skin, pulse against pulse, but it felt like the world stopped turning. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to speak, but no sound came. I could feel her breath, warm against my cheek. This can't happen, she whispered. It already is. Her eyes closed. For a moment, the space between us vanished, the air, the hesitation, the years. I leaned in, and she didn't move. Then a knock. Sharp. Persistent. She froze. I pulled back, heart pounding. Through the door, a voice called. Mom? It's me, forgot my keys. Her eyes widened. 1,000 thoughts crossed her face in a second, panic, guilt, loss. I stepped back, breath shallow. She turned off the light. The room went dark. Go, she whispered. Please. I didn't hear from her for a week. 7 days of silence, the kind that makes every small sound too loud. Then, out of nowhere, she texted. We need to talk. When I arrived, she was already waiting by the window. No greeting, no polite smile this time, just that stillness again, sharp around the edges. Her son's car wasn't outside. I noticed. She noticed that I noticed. You shouldn't have come, she said, voice barely above a whisper. You asked me to. She looked away. I shouldn't have. I stepped closer, searching her face for something, anger, regret, anything that wasn't this empty restraint. What's going on? She pressed a hand to her temple, exhaling. Evan, he found out. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? He heard us that night. The way you said my name, right before he knocked. He didn't say anything then, but She paused, her throat tightening. He asked me yesterday if you were the one who's been fixing my lights. The silence hit like a slap. I didn't know what to say. She did, she filled the space because I couldn't. I told him it was nothing. That you're just someone I hired. That there's nothing between us. Her voice trembled on that last word, and somehow that shook me more than if she'd yelled. You lied, I said quietly. What else was I supposed to do? Tell the truth. She turned then, finally meeting my eyes, and for the first time, I saw the fear behind hers. And what truth is that, exactly? That I let a man half my age stand in my kitchen like he belonged there? That I waited for his messages more than I should have? You don't know what that kind of truth costs. I stepped closer, heart hammering. Then stop pretending it doesn't matter. Her breath caught. I could see the argument forming, the reasons, the barriers, but none of them made it past her lips. She took a small step back, brushing the edge of the table. Her fingers gripped its surface as if steadying herself. You think this is simple, she said softly. I think it's real. The words landed between us, and something in her broke, not visibly, but in the way her shoulders dropped, the way her hand reached out just slightly, then froze. I don't know how to be this version of me, she whispered. Not anymore. Without thinking, I closed the distance. My hand brushed her arm, tentative, searching. She didn't move. Her skin was warm, trembling beneath my touch. Her eyes flicked up, full of all the things she wouldn't say. And then, softly, deliberately, she stepped into me. No kiss. No words. Just the weight of her forehead against mine, breath mingling, hearts out of rhythm. We can't keep doing this, she said. I know, I whispered. But we will. It was late when I went back. I didn't plan to. I told myself I wouldn't, but the lie didn't hold. The street was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own pulse. Her window glowed faintly, one soft rectangle of light against the night. She opened the door before I even knocked. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know, I whispered. But neither should you be waiting. Her eyes flicked up, startled, then softened, like she was too tired to keep pretending. I didn't know what I wanted you to do, she said. But when I heard footsteps, I hoped it was yours. The words hit me harder than I expected. Inside, the house felt smaller than before, too warm, too full of everything unsaid. The rain had stopped, but drops still clung to her hair. One slid down her temple, and without thinking, I reached up and brushed it away. She didn't pull back. Why do you do that? She murmured. Make everything feel so close. Because it already is. She looked at me then, really looked. No defenses. No practice distance. Just a woman standing in front of someone who saw her, maybe too clearly. I'm scared, she said softly. So am I. For a moment neither of us moved. The air between us thickened, filled with things that couldn't be said. My hand still hovered near her face, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. If we cross this line, she said, her voice trembling, we don't get to go back. I don't want to. Her lips parted slightly. The silence pulsed. Then she stepped forward, one slow, careful step, until our bodies almost touched. My breath caught, hers shuddered. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, feel the heat from her chest through the fabric between us. Her hand rose, stopping just short of my heart. You don't understand, she whispered. It's not about age, or what people will say. It's about what it might take from us if we're wrong. I met her eyes. And what if we're right? The question hung there, trembling, alive. She closed her eyes, once, slowly, as if surrendering to gravity. When she opened them again, she looked different. Not uncertain. Just real. Her hand slid upward, resting against the side of my neck. My pulse jumped under her palm. We didn't speak. Words would have ruined it. The air felt heavy, humming with the weight of choice, hers, mine, ours. Then she leaned in, just enough for her forehead to touch mine, her breath steady and near. "This," she said softly, "is as far as I can go." I nodded, though it broke something inside me. But she didn't move away. Her hand stayed there, holding me in that fragile middle ground between wanting and restraint, between the fire and the fear of it. And for the first time, we both stopped fighting what we already knew. The next morning came soft and gray. The kind of morning that doesn't rush you, doesn't demand anything, it just waits. I didn't expect to see her again. After what happened, or almost happened, I thought that was it. A line drawn, a door closed. But around noon my phone buzzed. "The light's still working," her message said. "But I thought you should know." I stared at it for a long time before typing back. "Glad to hear it." Then, after a pause, "Can I stop by?" Her reply came slower this time. "If you want to." When I arrived, she was sitting by the window again, a cup of tea in her hands, the same soft light pooling around her shoulders. She looked calm, not distant, just still. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I wasn't sure you wanted me to." She smiled faintly. "I don't know what I want half the time." "Maybe that's okay," I said. We sat there for a while, saying nothing. The quiet wasn't awkward anymore, it was something else. Familiar, almost comfortable. After a moment, she set her cup down. "You know, I spent so long being afraid of what people would think," she said slowly, "that I forgot how it feels to just feel something." I nodded. "And now?" She looked at me, really looked, the way she had the first night, under that flickering light. "Now I'm not afraid," she said softly. "At least not of that." Something eased in my chest then. Not relief exactly, more like permission. I reached out, my hand finding hers. She didn't hesitate this time. Her fingers curled around mine, steady, warm. The simplicity of it felt almost sacred. "Maybe this doesn't have to make sense," I said. "Maybe it doesn't," she whispered. "Maybe it just has to be real." Outside, the light shifted, soft gold spilling through the curtains, the kind of glow that makes everything look gentler than it is. She leaned into me, her head resting just beneath my chin. I could feel her heartbeat, slow and certain. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. The closeness was enough, the quiet, the shared air, the unspoken understanding that something between us had changed shape but hadn't disappeared. "I used to hate that lamp," she murmured, half smiling. "Always flickering, never steady. And now? Now it reminds me that sometimes light isn't meant to be perfect, just enough to see each other by." I tightened my grip on her hand, thumb brushing over her skin. She looked up at me, and for the first time, either of us looked away. The world outside kept moving, the wind, the faint sound of traffic, but inside, it felt like everything had finally stopped rushing. Whatever came next didn't matter. In that moment, we'd already chosen.